One dead and 5 injured in a Switzerland train attack. In the U.S., rioting in Milwaukee after a fatal shooting of a man by police. And locally, police arrest a man and his sister in a Tai Kok Choi murder.
Good evening. A woman has died and 5 others wounded, some of them seriously, after a man armed with a knife and flammable liquid staged an attack on a train in Switzerland. Authorities are trying to work out a motive, but are confident the incident was not terror-related.
It's been a summer of depressing attacks in and around Europe. The latest incident saw a Swiss man set fire and stab people on a train in the country's northeast. Among those injured was a 6-year-old child and 2 teenagers. Some of the injuries were said to be serious. Swiss police say the attack happened yesterday afternoon as the train near the station in Salers, near the border with Liechtenstein. They say the 27-year-old suspect had at least 1 knife and poured out a flammable liquid which caught fire. Police were quick to respond and arrested the suspect soon after the attack. In addition to the large police presence, the local fire department responded, along with rescue helicopters, emergency doctors and ambulance crews. Authorities are now trying to determine a motive. Swiss media are reporting that authorities do not believe the incident was terror-related. It's the first mass attack in recent memory targeting public transport in Switzerland. In Germany last month, a refugee from Afghanistan armed with an axe and knife attacked 4 Hong Kong tourists on a train and then stabbed a woman as he fled from the train. All victims of the violence survived while police shot and killed the assailant. The Islamic State group claimed responsibility for the attack.
City leaders in Milwaukee and the United States have pleaded for calm after violence erupted for several hours overnight. The violence follows a man's fatal shooting by police earlier on Saturday. At least 4 businesses burned and 1 officer was hurt during the ensuing violence. City officials say the situation appears to be calm after as many as 100 protesters skirmished with police, torched a squad car, and tossed a brick through the window of another. The unrest began several hours after a man fleeing police after a traffic stop was shot and killed. Police said the man was armed, but it wasn't clear whether he was pointing the gun or aiming it at officers. On the streets of New York, the leader of a mosque and his associate were walking home from afternoon prayers yesterday when they were fatally gunned down. While police search for a suspect and a motive, mourners believe anti-Muslim rhetoric is partly to blame. Video surveillance captured the brazen execution-style attack of 55-year-old Imam Malama Akinji and his 64-year-old associate Taram Uddin. Both were shot in the back of the head in broad daylight shortly after they left their mosque in the Ozone Park neighborhood of Queens.
Our 2 victims were walking northbound on 79th Street, and as they turned onto Liberty Avenue, they were approached from behind by what witnesses and video evidence shows: a male with a medium complexion, dark-colored polo-style shirt and shorts. Immediately after the victims were shot, the same male is seen fleeing from the scene southbound on 79th Street.
Outside the mosque, Muslim leaders say in addition to the gunmen, others should be held accountable. They put the blame on those spouting anti-Muslim rhetoric, namely Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump.
For those in leadership like Mr. Trump and Mr. Giuliani and other members of other institutions that project Islam and Muslims as the enemy, this is the end result of their wickedness.
People in the public do not know how to interpret those words, and they just assume that all Muslims are his targets, and therefore they target common Muslims walking down the street.
A lot of what's behind this crime and other hate crimes that have happened to American Muslims is the anti-Muslim rhetoric that continues day in and day out within the media.
But police insist the Muslim cleric and his friend were not targeted for their religion.
There's nothing in the preliminary indication that would indicate that they were targeted because of their faith.
Members of the Bangladeshi community served by the mosque are demanding the case be treated as a hate crime.
The dramatic rescue of a woman and her dog was captured in the deadly flooding that continues to wreak havoc in the U.S. Gulf Coast. Emergency crews pulled the woman out just as her car was being swallowed up by floodwaters. Then she begged them to save her dog too, so a rescuer had to go underwater to find the canine. After several seconds, he was able to locate her dog and save the pooch just in the nick of time. Over 2,000 people and lots of pets had to be rescued after floods inundated their homes or they got trapped in their cars as they were fleeing. So far, 3 people have died in the historic flooding. The scope of the disaster is so devastating, both Louisiana and Mississippi are under a state of emergency. The National Guard has been deployed to help evacuate stranded residents.
Here in Asia, Thai authorities say the recent series of bombings and arson attacks, which left 4 people dead in southern Thailand, was planned by a single person. Thai authorities have arrested 1 person in relation to the attacks. Officials have given no further details on who they believe was responsible. No group has claimed responsibility for the attacks, which happened in the resort areas such as Hua Hin and Phuket. The wave of attacks on Thursday and on Friday came as tourists flocked to the beaches at the start of a public holiday.
Local police have arrested a man in connection with his wife's death in Tai Kok Choi last night. Officers have also detained the man's sister as they investigate the murder case. Caleb Leung reports.
It's around 7 o'clock last night. Police received a report about a couple getting into a heated argument in a residential unit on Wai On Street in Tai Kok Choi. When officers arrived at the scene, they found a badly injured woman who sustained 2 knife wounds to the left side of her chest. The woman's husband, who suffers from diabetes and heart disease, was sitting outside the apartment. Both the 47-year-old woman and her 66-year-old husband were rushed to Kwangwal Hospital for treatment. The woman was later pronounced dead. The police say they found a sashimi knife in the apartment, but there was no blood stain on it. They suspect the knife was rinsed with water and has to be further examined to see if it is related to the case. An officer told reporters the couple had an argument and a fight over money problems stemming from the purchase of property on the mainland. It's believed the woman was stabbed in her chest during the chaos. The woman's 57-year-old sister-in-law, who lives with the couple, was also arrested and detained overnight. Sources indicated the sister-in-law was in the apartment during the incident, but she refused to tell the police what had happened. The couple had a record of domestic violence around 2 months ago, and the case was referred to the Social Welfare Department for follow-up actions. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying says Hong Kong people have a duty to safeguard the mainland's sovereignty. He made the remarks at a military experience camp for nearly 100 local university students today. Anne-Marie Sim reports.
It was the end of a 13-day military experience for these university students at the People's Liberation Army Hong Kong Garrison's San Wai Barracks. During their time at the PLA camp, some 80 students got a taste of army life, which included learning marching drills and receiving intensive military and martial arts training. This participant said she wanted to enter the disciplined services after graduation. And through this training camp, she experienced a regulated, self-disciplined life. She believes she's now better equipped to respond to orders from superiors. Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying, his wife Regina Leung and Chief Secretary for Administration Carrie Lam attended the camp's closing ceremony today. During his speech, the CE said Hong Kong people must be responsible for protecting national security. The country's stability and development can help Hong Kong's prosperity, he said. Leung noted that for the younger generation of Hong Kongers, the mainland is their biggest platform for career development and the driving force behind continuously raising Hong Kong people's global status. So in the interest of the country, of Hong Kong and of individuals, Hong Kong people have a duty to safeguard national sovereignty and territorial integrity, as well as the country's safety, Leung added. The military training camp was organised by the SAR government and the liaison office of the central government and is in its 6th year. The camp is aimed at cultivating university students' self-discipline and teaching them the importance of teamwork. Anne-Marie Sim, TVB News.
Meanwhile, the Hong Kong Academy of School Managers issued a circular today warning staff about fostering pro-independence ideas on campus. According to the statement, some educators or educational groups are openly advocating Hong Kong's independence from the mainland to students. It said such ideas include separation from the mainland, going against the SAR government, and opposing the Basic Law. The group said stirring up the debate among the student population is actually just an excuse to spread such ideas. It added that it's unethical for educators to do this, saying it's against the law. The group urged schools to be aware of the problem and prevent it from happening.
Still ahead in our newscast, Sarah Lee crashes out of the women's Keirin event in the Rio Olympics. Venezuelans cross into Colombia to buy much-needed items following the reopening of border crossings. And R2-D2 star Kenny Baker dies.